It's 5 o'clock somewhere, and that means that it is time for happy hour here at Loud Poets. Welcome, guys, to our second ever episode of our brand new show, Loud Poets Happy Hour. My name is Dr. Katie Ailes. I am your host with the most, and I will be guiding you through this journey. Kevin, don't you shake your head. I am excellent in this role. I will be guiding you through this journey of poetic discovery. If you haven't seen any of Happy Hour before, you can check out all of the episodes up through the link in the eye. We release bi-weekly full episodes and tips and check-ins, and the whole point is to write and encourage you guys to write along with us. So I am so happy to have you here watching the show, and I am joined tonight by the exquisite, the ruby-hued Mr. Kevin McLean. Kevin, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a dark fruit strongbow, but because that's a bit basic, what I'm actually drinking is an Arizona half iced tea, half lemonade special little concoction. It was a wee birthday treat, so I've been saving it for a special occasion. And what's more special than the Loud Poets Happy Hour? Oh, yeah.
Nothing is more special. Nothing is more special. I am also joined by the fantabulous and fuzzy Mr. Mark Galley. Mark, what are you drinking?
I was going to be drinking Joker IPA, but then because that would be basic, I have brought in dark matter from the surface of the sun. Yeah.
2 weeks in a row, you've gone basic, Galley. Terrible.
How dare you? How dare you?
And as I said, my name is Dr. Katie Ailes, and I am drinking some freshly squeezed orange juice. Cheers, guys.
Freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy. Is that what you're getting at, Katie? Is that what you're getting
at? No
at?
wrestling references. This
Damn
is my
it.
poetry
Wearing
show.
the wrong t-shirt.
So, welcome, guys. In Happy Hour, we take on poetry writing challenges, and we chat about it and invite you guys to join us on the journey. So, I'm so excited because this is, as I said, the second episode, but the first episode in which we have poems to share from our very first writing challenge. I have not heard the poems this week. These two have assured me that poems exist, but I have not heard them. So I am very, very excited alongside you lovely, delightful viewers. So we are going to get right into the discussion. But before we do, I do just want to remind you guys, if you want to propose challenges for us to take on, the easiest way of doing that is to sign up to our Patreon, because then for only £1 a month or more, if you're feeling awesome and generous, you can submit challenges to the Poetic Pint Glass of Poetic Challenges, which I'm going to bring out now. So Mark, could you sing?
It's the Poet Pint Glass of Poetic Challenges.
Please don't try and sing together. It's going to be a nightmare to edit.
That's true. That's true. This is our pint glass, and it's full of challenges. And we received some fantastic challenges from our patrons, which are now going in the glass. So thank you, patrons, for proposing challenges. I know what these are, and I'm so excited. And at the end of this episode, we will pull them out and let you guys, you viewers, vote on what we take on next. But before then, it's time to talk about the challenge that we already have. So, Kev, would you like to introduce the challenge that we've been working on this week?
You're the worst teacher.
Because you proposed this challenge.
Yeah.
Oh no, I did. Oh yeah, that is my fault. Ugh. No, it was good. We had to remix poetry cliches. That was the challenge. Vague, nice and vague. Plenty of wiggle room. Like it.
So if you haven't seen, I released a 5 top tips video with my guidance on how to remix poetic cliches, which you can watch through the link up in the eye. It also contains, may I say, the best shark impression that the world has ever seen. So watch until the end for that. But yeah, we offered that guidance for you guys. And then I also checked in with Mark in a video that came out last Thursday to see how he was getting on. And he had been doing things.
I had made progress since the challenge was proposed. That is correct.
It's
So
funny
that
because
was
normally
good.
when we've done these shows, there's like a bunch of us, and I think it's taken some of the pressure off Mark. He very much looked like a kid at school with you when it was one-on-one. You could see the nerves of him, like, "No, miss, I've definitely done all of my homework. I'll just
Oh.
give me 2 minutes."
Yeah, the fear of not handing in homework
Mm,
is something that I wish I'd had at school.
gotta do your homework on Loud Poets Happy Hour, because that's what happy hour is all about, right? That's, you go to the pub at 5 p.m. and you do your homework. That's is that not how it works? So our challenge this week was to remix poetic cliches. And what I said in the 5 top tips video is basically, we can define cliches so broadly, right? So a cliche can be a phrase, it can be a poetic form, it can be a gesture, it can be any number of things, right? A story. And so I'm really excited to see how you guys interpreted it. So what I think I'm gonna do is, Mark, we checked in first.
We did.
So I already know a little bit about your plan, and I'm so curious to see how it turned out. So would you kick us off by I guess it's up to you whether you want to talk about the poem first or just give it right to us.
I'll give some context because it was very close to being an entirely different poem than what we spoke about in the check-in.
Well, that's exciting.
Because I did the check-in and then you made me think about a bunch of stuff, and so I went away and re-looked at what I had and got very angry and annoyed at a bunch of things. And so instead of fixing it, started thinking about other things and came up with what I thought was a better idea. But in the end, I powered through. So for those that didn't see the check-in or didn't, so what I'd started with was the cliche I went with was poems to poetry as an entity, but specifically because all of them are always really mean to poetry, and I don't think they deserve it. It's not fair. Everyone's so mean to poetry, and I thought I'd throw a curveball by saying something nice about something. So I was like, that was
I thought it was so interesting when you guys were chatting about that neither of you brought up Kevin Gilday's "I've fallen out of love with poetry" as the perfect reference for
yeah.
that
That's
vibe.
so true, though. We'll put a link for you guys to watch that poem.
It's so good.
Yeah, but that's another fantastic example of a poet who has fallen out of love with poetry, and yeah.
And I should say, it goes without saying, like I said in the thing, with cliches in this form, I'm not thinking about anyone in particular. I'm guilty of half the stuff I'm preaching about. Disclaimer over, nice and thingy. So there you go. Well, so that was the idea, or that was the cliche, and so this is what I've done with it. It's a way of putting it. Hello, poetry. No. Don't worry. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I am not here to hurt you. I'm not here to blame you. I'm here to say sorry and to thank you. I'm here to say what's never been said. Not like this. I like you, poetry. You've got guts. Takes one tough son of a format to take all that punishment and keep trucking like you have against all the odds. But then there's always been more to you than meets the eye. I can see why so many fall head over heels for you. You've got a big heart. Goes well with your sleeve. And personally, I think you look great for your age. Don't listen to them. They aren't worth it. I know it's difficult. You've taught them so well that sticks and stones would probably hurt less, and best they stick with words, they'd only blame you for the mess. People in glass houses, you know the type. Grass is always greener, bite off more than they can chew and blame the steak. It's the brick's fault for the headache caused staying up all night banging your head against the wall. This is not okay. You don't deserve it. I'm sorry. And thank you for listening. You know, I don't think I've ever heard you talk. I know you told us your name ages ago, and since then, strong and silent type aside, I really do owe you. You taught me how to fish. It's not your fault. The pond's kind of small. Let me see what I can do about that. You helped me find my words. But I went with these. Wouldn't want you thinking there was a deeper meaning, a tip of the iceberg lurking beneath the surface. Because when all is said and done, poetry, you be what you want to be, what you always have been. It's not your fault. It's not you. It's those poets I don't trust.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You've
Way
made
to
that such a sorry, Kate, sorry. You made that such a connection to like your I don't trust poets and stuff. It's like you can see the narrative weave through, and they would be great for like a set together and stuff now.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, way to set up the Mark Galley poetry extended universe. That's well done.
Layers between layers. But yeah, so you go, that was my cliche. Again, I think there's a bigger poem in there. But that's what I've got for you today, at least.
It's so good. You said in the check-in when I was watching it that you were concerned about just kind of putting cliches in for cliches sake, because it's a good way to do it, right? To like show the sort of silliness of cliche by rapid fire hitting them, but you want to also show how to use it effectively by like going another way. And that's such a good thing to do it, of going, you can use cliche to say what you need to say, but here's a way to use it actually well. Like it's so like nicely layered. I'm a big fan of that. Like I did Loud Lotto, and my point was to take a form I didn't like and do something that I was like, that's a better way to use it. It can be a guide, but the number should reflect something. It should mean something. And that's a really good example of how to use, like you said, none of your own words almost. But it's more like, it's almost like a concrete poem, right? It's like you've taken the fridge magnets and moved them together to say what you want to say out of it. It's lovely, lovely stuff.
Well, thank you. And that I mean, that is the point, is that was the biggest takeaway from the check-in, because I had that idea of I wanted to have a lot of cliches because I wanted to mix a bunch of things. And I realized that I was like, I'm definitely trying to be way too clever with this poem. And that's why I think there was a very clever poem in the idea. But I didn't have the time and the thing to go through it all and craft it quite the way I wanted to. So, but that was the bit I was going to think, like, the cliches weren't informing any part of what the actual thing was. And so I had to go away and sort of have a rethink. So yeah, the check-in's dead helpful. Like,
Yay! No, I it's so nice to hear that finished piece, because I think especially when you're talking to someone about a concept, it's so hard to like get a handle on what that's actually going to be and what the tone of it is. And I love the humor in that. You know, I feel like that had all of the ingredients of the galley poetry that I love, which is the humor and the heart. You know, I'm not going to be able to quote from it just from hearing it once, but you had that bit about sort of poetry's heart and poetry's sleeve. You know, there are all of these lines that will make an audience chuckle, but also, yeah, I think there, if you scratch at it, there is something a lot more profound about sort of what do we expect from the craft, and when are we giving the craft crap, when actually maybe it's just us who need to innovate more with what we're doing with it. So
I know
yeah.
one of your points, Kate, during the top 5 tips was like subversion
Yeah,
of how
yeah.
and I think that's such a big thing. You use it loads in comedy, of the implied gag, and then
Yeah.
no, the punchline was actually over here. You thought this
Yeah.
because you're out of date. I'm a step ahead, right? And you can use it so well in poetry. It's wordplay. It's the four candles sketch, right? It's that. And like when you could rattle off a bunch of cliches, you know, and it is what it is. It's a pun poem then, right? But like
yeah.
when what you do in that one is the implication of it, you know, going like you got a big heart, goes well with your sleeves. Like it's a slight tweak and twist on the thing that shows an understanding, but a want to not replicate, but to like evolve. And that's when something becomes referential rather than cliched, I think.
Yes.
This is the thing, because I'm looking a lot at cliche and going, and it's right, but it's like the thing at the start, not the thing, but like call it like the term basic even in of itself, you know, like it's the, you know, pop people, like the idea of not liking pop music because it, you know, because it's popular. I get, you know, once something's done enough, it's, you know, people get tired of it. But it's also very interesting that I'm like, those are still the things that seem to last the longest as well. And you're like, so it's curious.
The commonly used endures because like I sort of have been saying throughout this challenge, like it's trying to get at the kernel of beauty or truth at the heart of the thing, you know, getting at why people use it, because it's not just there can be lazy cliche use, but it's because there is something there that is, you know, it is the simplest or most beautiful way of communicating something. I keep coming back to that, Kev, your definition of poetry.
But
And I
it's
think
a
that,
good point. A cliche like really is it's a code word. You know what I
exactly.
mean? For a large concept that's hard to quantify.
Yeah.
So you have a universal touchstone that everyone can reference, and you get a basic approximation of what people are trying to say. But because context shifts and like understanding lacks, and no one ever explains the cliche, it slowly becomes something it doesn't mean. It's like the curiosity killed the cat. But there's another part to that saying that.
But satisfaction brought it back.
Yeah.
Jack of all trades, master of none is there's a rest of the
Great
thing.
minds think alike, and fools seldom differ. Like you lose that other section of it, and some cliches don't mean what you think they mean because of it.
Oh, blood is thicker than water. They do. Oh, that's family first. The rest of that sentence is that it's the blood of the covenant. It's about the family you choose,
Yeah.
other than the water of life that you are given.
It's a reference to the blood of Christ. The blood of Christ is thicker than water.
Yeah, the second half of the thing totally changes the meaning of it. And then, you know, it's that same thing there. People in glass houses. If you did that enough, you'd be like, people have no idea that you shouldn't chuck a stone in there. You know.
Yeah, it means people in glass houses are smug, right? Like that's eventually what the cliche means, given enough time and lack of context. Your boys have been researching cliches.
I'm mind blown over here. This is great. I love it when I set homework and it happens. This is delightful. Well done, lads.
Victory sip.
Victory sip for everyone. Mark, thank you so much for that poem. That was awesome. And I feel like it's one of those poems that, because it is so meta and its commentary on cliche and on poetry itself, and it's a poem that's a commentary on poems about poems, I'm going to be chewing on it mentally for a long time.
I'll send you the text.
Please do. That
you
that
could
would
edit
make
it and make it grammatically
simpler.
correct while you're looking at it. That would be super great.
You know I will. You know I will. I can't turn that impulse off. Kev, delightful Kevin. I am very excited for your poem because I have a feeling that I know what it's going to be about.
I think everyone knows. If you watched last time, you know.
I kind of want you to go left field and do something that has nothing to do with Icarus, but I feel like is it gonna be Icarus?
Yeah.
I'm
angry about it. It does come to a point though. It's a really nice segue actually what we were talking about there, and like seeing that me and Gally have kind of, I guess, come to a similar conclusion. But I think what Gally has done is looked at the kind of, like you just said there, Kate, the meta, like the, you know, the sort of macro version of it, whereas I've tried to like narrow in and use a particular example.
Okay.
So like you'll see quite quickly, like I literally use the word context in like the first stanza, and that's what I found when I was looking at all these cliches and stuff. It was a lack of understanding. How many people do you know have actually read the proper, like, or any version of the story of Icarus? Because it's like a very old story that has been manipulated and changed a whole bunch. And if you ask most people what's Icarus, they'd be like, oh, he made wings to fly, but he flew too high and they melted. And that's not the story. That's not what happened. And it was like, having done that, and I saw poems and stuff like referencing it, and slowly over time, Icarus has become this metaphor for trying to do the right thing and risking the consequence anyway. And it's not what that's about. It's just a bad example of it. So this is the basis for my poem, is like, just use better references, I guess. Cool. as well, just because I like Gally. The thing you were saying about not wanting to insult people, like I'm not going to do the big list of people who I like and like their work and like their poems that reference Icarus. They exist. And almost kind of deliberately do that. I kick off the poem with a deliberate use of a cliche because they're useful if you use them correctly. And so like that's, you know what I mean? It's supposed to be an example, so it's fine.
Sweet. I'm
Just so
excited.
no one's like, oh, that's a cliche. I think you'll find, I know. Cool. Infinite monkeys, given infinite time, might write Shakespeare into existence. But one poet, given an afternoon, guarantees an Icarus reference, which leads to the inevitable question. If we love his story so much, how have we so spectacularly missed its lesson? Wisdom becoming cliche as context gives way to window dressing. Modern minds attach new meaning to the ancient. Icarus's passion, Icarus's daring, Icarus's laughing despite the fate that he's facing. Adaptations to twist a tale of rebellion into one on the perks of conforming. Less a gentle parable, more a stern and solemn warning. Icarus isn't the little rebel inside all of us, the one screaming, screw the consequence. He wasn't flapping his feathers for the thrill of the fucking experience. He was fleeing incarceration due to the hubris of Daddy Daedalus, amazing maze constructing genius, smart enough to invent a human bovine mating device and to somehow figure out human flight, but dumb enough to risk his own son's life by not simply waiting for night. How has the moral of that story become dad is always right? That to disobey is to throw away the potential he has gifted you, that you must not deviate from his plan regardless of what he's put you through. Don't fly too low, or waters will pull you down. Don't fly too high, or you'll end as a waxy smear upon the ground. Only in your father's wake can safety be found. An elaborate I told you so. A grasping, clutching hold to power and control. There is danger in your dreaming. At least that's the story being told. But wings weren't the want of Icarus. They were the lie his father sold.
Oh my God.
Oh, he did it. He wrote the Icarus poem.
Wow. First of all, I have a pretty thorough appreciation of anyone who goes and does the proper full research on a myth. Helen of Troy. So yeah, because looking into the story of Daedalus and actually what happened with the Minotaur and the maze and all of that, I think that's fascinating. And because it's not a myth that I'm hugely familiar with. And I think you're completely right. One of the facets of cliche is that we put on blinkers and we only remember one perspective on a story. We only think about something in one specific way. And that's such an important reminder that that was not the original moral, or it was one potential original moral, but absolutely not the only way of viewing that narrative. I love that, Kev. That's fantastic. Wow.
I think it's because the idea that he's like, the story is that he gets caught up in the giddiness of flight and goes too high. And that's very different from being like, I want to fly and then doing it and it going wrong. You know what I mean? Like he hadn't chosen that. He hadn't picked that. He was like caught up in it and he didn't to the letter follow his dad's instruction when he could have made better choices and not put him in the situation. Like it just, a lot of the research I did, I saw articles about like how boomers like the story of Icarus and that's why it's so prevalent. And it's because of that thing. It is like it's like, no, you have to do what I say because I understand the delicate parameters with which you can walk. And you're like, nah.
I mean, it's become a parable about clipping ambition. about,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
the
was going to
dangers
say.
of ambition. Yeah.
That was always how it was sold to me, that they don't fly too close to the sun. The thing, I think Icarus is never mentioned in that particular phrasing, but yeah, it was like, "Ooh, don't fly too close to the sun," as a way of going, "Ooh, you're trying too hard." I,
And
before,
like, what a horrible message.
yeah, I mean, it's Greek mythology. No offense to any ancient Greeks listening, but your myths and stories are tragic. Like, I love them, but my God, could someone end happily ever after? Love God.
No.
There's subverting a cliche in ancient Greece.
But it's true to the fact, like if the because it's not nice to say to people, well, that's probably going to fail, so you shouldn't try that. So we found a nice way of saying, don't fly too close to the sun, and you're like, it sugarcoats a thing that isn't appropriate to say. So then, like, and it's not even based in what that story is about, which is like he wasn't trying to get to the sun, like that wasn't his goal, like.
It's really interesting, actually, because another cliche that I was thinking about, we had a lovely comment on the check-in video just there, by a viewer mentioning that a cliche that they were going to write about is all clouds have a silver lining. And I think that's another one where it masks something that is really uncomfortable to say. Because I've been thinking about, it's often come to my tongue during the pandemic where I'm like, oh, well, all clouds have a silver lining. And at least, I've been Skyping my family more regularly. And you're like, it's actually kind of a horrific phrase when you're like, all of this death and destruction has some perks, And
Yeah.
it's not that that isn't necessarily a true thing to say, but I think when we're talking about cliches, it is fascinating because you think, okay, to what extent is this a nice, palatable metaphor to mask something that is actually quite an uncomfortable statement?
I
And
mean,
I
you could
think
use
that, yeah,
politics as the same example of like,
exactly.
there's so many tropes in there to say things that you're not really, so you
Thoughts
don't
and
need to.
prayers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Sorry, I'm just gonna say, because I didn't get a chance to. Excellent piece, Kev. It's lovely to finally hear a piece come out of that after, because I like when you do the cliches, you then don't want to write about them. Like I can
Yeah,
almost get, I'd put my bet on, if we'd never been given the challenge, you would have never written a poem that even remotely mentioned Icarus or anything around him. But what I really love and respect about it is that from the point of view of cliche, that thought of overdoneness is that, yeah, you've come at it from such this angle of going, it's not that it's overdone, going, stop using it wrong. Like you can use
Yeah.
cliche, but use it right, because otherwise it becomes something wrong. And it was when you were talking about the story of Icarus, I was like, I know I've read and been told this, but it was in those moments I was like, it was so long ago. I was like, I remember that he was incarcerated, I remember bits and pieces, but yeah, in the fact, in that whole story of Icarus, you could have that term, don't fly too close to the sun. You're like, will you at least use it right? If you're gonna overuse it, do it properly. And I think that's one that's very admirable and a very interesting facet about and look into all cliche of how we view that. I'm going, do we dislike it because it's overdone, or do we dislike certain cliches because we know a bit more about that? And you're like, well, that's missing the point. That's not using that right, to put it in a weird,
it's why
like,
they're seen as lazy, right? Because like
yeah,
it's a way of going like, well, you're saying a thing that people understand, but it's lacking nuance. It never accurately fully applies. It's why not say the specific thing rather than this kind of catch-all term that, because it's catch-all, actually catches nothing. You know what I mean? It's yeah.
but it's one thing in the argument I do like, for almost for cliche in that thing, and it's, without sounding too thingy, it's sort of what I tried to allude in a bit in mine, and the idea of finding words, as I think cliches are incredibly useful for people that can't, that can't think of the words on the spot. I'm going, like, how often that breakup cliche, it's not me, it's you. Like,
Yeah.
it's cliche, but how often is it actually really the case of going,
Yeah.
you're lovely and you're a wonderful person, but I'm kind of messed up and I don't want to put you through that. Like, how do you put that
Yeah.
in those moments to not drag it out? You solidify it down. And so I'm like, a really interesting take, because I had faith that you would do something interesting with it, but it was like, oh, I wonder how much of that's like he's had that idea or that hatred, that thing in his head. Would he be able to fulfill his own expectations? And
I think the biggest thing with it as well was like not making it about poetry, which is kind of the opposite of what you did, because you're doing it on a meta level. You're talking about poetry in the round, whereas because I'm like picking out a very specific thing I don't like, it feels very accusatory to people that have done it. And so I tried to steer away from like poets using it. I know it is referenced, like the start is very explicit. But once I get into it, I am more just talking about the story and the understanding of it. And I'm not like, so fuck you for having done it at the end. You know what I mean? I'm just like, that's an issue. Yeah.
I think, yeah, to just to reference like one more sort of Icarus thing that I think really like rounds off this conversation well, because I think just through this challenge, and I'm really grateful to you, Kev, for proposing this challenge, because I think what a fantastic way of starting off happy hour by thinking about poetry in this way. I know Mark is all pissy
and by doing a
know.
poem about a myth. I suppose you didn't rewrite a myth. Never mind. All right.
wrote the accurate version of
yeah,
the myth,
true.
perhaps.
Yeah, you incorporated both. So.
But yeah, I just think because one thing that was coming to my head when you were sharing your poem, Kev, was the W.H. Auden poem, Musée des Beaux-Arts. I think I'm slightly getting the title wrong, but it's the one that begins with the line, about suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters. And he's talking about, it's an ekphrastic poem, and he's talking about the Bruegel painting, The Fall of Icarus, which is an amazing painting, and we'll put links to everything below as always. But it's a painting which is just this beautiful vista, and there's a farmer farming in the foreground, and there's lots of stuff happening. And then just tiny in the painting, you can just see a pair of legs coming out of the sea. And the fall of Icarus is a tiny detail in this huge painting. And the point that Bruegel, the painter, is making is like, it was a normal day for that farmer. And yeah, a boy fell from the sky, but that was just in the background and he didn't even notice. And that's then the point that W.H. Auden, the poet, is making about the painting, saying, while you are an individual who is going through hell, going through grief, going through trauma, to everyone else, life is just going on as usual. And you can see that either as incredibly depressing and crushing, or as maybe a source of hope. So I just wanted to bring that up, because I think it's another really brilliant take on the Icarus myth, where it's not actually about Icarus at all. It's about an incident being one small incident in a vaster world. But because I think one of the best ways of taking cliché is just by looking at them askance, and really just taking a completely different perspective. So yeah, awesome work, Kev. That was.
And you wanted W.H. Auden to steal my thunder. Thanks, Kate. No worries. Cool. Yeah, go check out Auden. Whatever.
Hey, references. That's my jam. And for one more reference, I have another poem, Kevin, another poet who is here to steal your thunder. Viewers, you may remember that in the last episode, we said that the stunning, brilliant, and exquisite Beck Sherwood would normally be joining us for Loud Poets Happy Hour, but unfortunately is in the middle of a move. For a while, she was caught. She had wallpapered herself into a wall, and so she was stuck there for about a week and a half. That was a problem. But she finally extricated herself, so thank goodness for that. All good there. And managed to write a poem for this challenge. So she sent it in through carrier pigeon, dropped off the floppy disk this morning, and we're gonna play it for you guys. So I am incredibly excited to introduce Beck Sherwood here with her poem for our very first Loud Poets Happy Hour challenge.
Hi, I am the incredible Bex Sherwood, and unfortunately I cannot be here with you today for the second episode of Loud Poets Happy Hour, but I did still do the challenge of remixing a cliché, and here is my poem, Siren Song. Sailor snoozes, steers ship, stern standing, scouting storm, silently ship sways. Salty surf seeks tuner's side, seaman sleep, skipper snores, starlight shines. Subtle sounds, sweet song saturates still skies. Sailor stops steering. Searches starboard, seeking shore signs. Sees sea. Sailor surprised. Symphonic song swells, suspicion soars, sound soothes, settles. Sailor smiles, spellbound. Strengthened sheets. steers ship south, siren smiles, saboteurs secretly signals, skilled systems, subterfuge, simple song spells, sacrifice, shadowed shrouds, ship sails, straight Starbucks surfaces. Server starts. Sailors standard sequence. Sawyer, skinny, single shot, size small. Siren stirs, sailor sands, sign served. Sailor sips, spirit surge, ship sails.
Bex, you genius.
Even
Just
from inside wallpaper.
right.
Look
The
pretty moved
lady-
into me.
Yeah. What else is behind the wallpaper? Oh,
well.
what
So
a
good.
piece,
I
though.
think Bex is. It's been so interesting to see out the back of NaPoWriMo and Return to Form. The Bex is just hooked on restrictions. She
Yep.
needs some totally arbitrary thing to be able to like force into a poem. It's wonderful.
She did tweet while she was writing this. I saw she was like, I tried to write freeform. It didn't work. I can't write freeform anymore. I need to impose an additional challenge on myself, which I do understand because I'm also working right now on a commission in freeform and I'm finding it incredibly difficult without the restrictions. So it is funny when you go back and forth. But yeah,
We've broken
Bex, what an
ourselves.
amazing piece. I gotta say, I did not see the twist coming. And for a while I was like, is this a poem about siren song? And the twist is that it's alliterative. And then at the very end, I was like, oh my gosh, no, genius.
I like though that Bex hasn't particularly gone critical. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
No.
because it's a remix. And so it's
Yeah.
taking something like Siren Song. Because I when I was watching it there, I couldn't think. It was only when you just said their Siren Song, I'm like, oh right, yeah, that's what it is. I was trying to figure out what the cliche was, and I was like, is it twist endings? Is it like, I'm not sure. But that makes sense because that's a great way to remix it to make it almost unnoticeable within the piece, right?
It shows a lack of anger and hatred towards cliche that I suppose you and me must have. Suppose that when people heard remix a cliche, they went, oh, something that's cliched, and think of a way to do it rather than I'm gonna do a thing.
I think that's the thing though, because cliches aren't inherently bad. I think it's funny
No.
with Siren Song because, you know, there is quite a negative side. Like, you know, the idea of the quite sexist idea of like, oh, women are just sirens and, you know, they sing you off of your natural course and they lull you in with false pretenses and then, you know, they murder you.
Who hurt you, Kate?
Yeah, this was my thing. When you were going to all these like women, are there, like for me, Siren Song has always been that like it's the call that kills you. It's
Exactly.
It's obviously the idea about the sirens and stuff comes from that place. But I was like, for me, Siren Song's always been a nice allure into death. It's never been a particularly like it's never been had a positive light about it.
I mean, and again, from Greek myth, I could be wrong here, but you know, I believe the main mention of the sirens is in the Odyssey, you know, when Odysseus is trying to sail home and the sirens sing him off course and he gets caught on Calypso's island, right? And so it's this, you know, this myth about these seductive women who have these powerful voices and can steer someone off course. So then I love sort of, obviously she doesn't go, you know, hard political in it, but this idea of sort of like capitalism and commercialism being the siren here of like, you're just trying to walk down the street and then Starbucks grabs you and snares you in and seduces you and makes you pay like £5 for some foamy milk. So yeah.
Sponsor us, Starbucks.
It's so nice that I think what Bex always does so well is like pairs her structure to theme very well. So it's you're getting something like a remix of cliche, and so she takes what is a cliche rooted in something very old and finds not only it also applies to something new. So like that siren thing, and of going, oh, that applies to Starbucks, like logoing in the cupping. I assume that's right. It's supposed to be a siren.
It's a
on
siren.
the
Yeah,
logo.
that's their logo. Yeah.
That twist comes in, and there's the remix, right? Because it's why that works so well, because it's not harking to the what the cliche means. It is like literally the purest version of the remix, right? It's taking it and going like siren means something totally different in this context, and just I think she does that always so well. Like her stuff's always thematically really strong.
I'm
Mm.
very much enjoying as well, and this is no shade on anything. I'm really enjoying seeing like stuff that's not inherently like comedic poetry, because I know it's like you were saying, like Kay, you were saying to Joe Gilbert, and then talk about the idea of being pigeonholed as like as a funny poet, as a the funny poet, the cow poet, the thing, these like sort of more wacky things. I think it's sometimes easy to sometimes forget until you see pieces like this that it's not just that she can do. Like she's got incredible reps. Go back to the horror stuff that she's done. She's got an amazing range, and so it's really nice to see these bits going. Yeah, no, you're like, it's quality writing as well. Like,
And that's, I mean, I think that's the real value of taking on challenges and challenging yourself to do something different, particularly when it is looking at cliche. Challenging yourself to, break out of that mold, whether it is comedy or whether it is sincerity. I mean, I know, for Beck's writing more, like sort of sincere or autobiographical work was her breaking out of her normal style, whereas for me it would be the opposite. Me trying to write humor is incredibly difficult, whereas it's a skill that comes more naturally to her, which is great. So real value in taking on challenges, which is the perfect segue, Mark, to
the poetic pint glass of poetic challenges. Dun dun.
When did this become Mark's official job in the thing?
Don't know, but
when
I'm
I
kind
started
of,
hosting the show.
I like that I've just become the bard of the
She didn't even say sing at that time, Mark. She just went, Mark.
I'm gonna.
He knows his job.
He
knows his job.
I'm gonna have to start forming a list and just be like, well, I've done that one now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Make a spreadsheet and vary your songs. So far, good job. But yeah, I'll be expecting high quality. So, guys, it has come to the part in the show where we pick our next challenges from the Poetic Pint Glass of Poetic Challenges. So the way that this works, we started off the Poetic Pint Glass of Poetic Challenges in our first ever episode. We chucked in a few ourselves, and then the rest of the challenges come from our beautiful Patreon supporters. If you sign up to our Patreon for as little as £1 a month, you are able to submit challenges. Nothing is too weird, and I'm going to regret saying that.
Loads of things are too weird. When she takes that back, don't listen.
You said it. It's canon.
We reserve the right if it's too weird.
No, this is the benefit of challenges. Come on. Come on.
But yeah, please do submit your own ideas to the glass. It is
It's got a rattling sound.
It's got a rattling sound now. But yeah,
so
basically
easily impressed.
I know. I just love props, guys. I just love props. So what we are going to do is I'm going to pick out 2 selections from the Poetic Pint Glass of the Poetic Challenges, and then you guys get to vote on what will win. And I am not pointing to Kevin and Mark. I am pointing to you, viewer. You get to vote. And I'll tell you how to do that after this. But first, it is selection time. So, Kevin, sing a drum roll. Alrighty, and okay. I folded them too good. Our very first challenge is to write a poem from the perspective of an unreliable narrator. I am so excited.
That sounds like a real challenge. I thought this was going to be nonsense.
Well, then get more Patreon supporters to put in nonsense. This is from one of our favorite people in the whole entire universe, Flo Cairns. Flo is amazing. Flo comes.
I can't even be angry anymore.
Flo comes to so many of our shows and is just a wonderful, wonderful human being. And this is such a great challenge. unreliable. Yes, unreliable
Straight up
narration.
thought that had to be one you'd put in, Kate. Didn't think any of the patrons would be
Unreliable
throwing out
Nah,
unreliable.
It sounded
but
too
it makes
clever
sense with
to be any
flow,
of
yeah.
us.
Yeah,
like-
that's 100% Flo.
It would
I
be
should
Flo.
say Flo submitted multiple challenges, and one of them was just the word dragons. So you
Yes!
guys,
that's not a
Yes!
challenge.
Yes, it is.
yes, it is. So if you wanted to combine Flo's prompts, you could write a poem from the perspective of an unreliable dragon.
All
I already
dragons are
have one of
unreliable
them.
dragons.
I actually already have one of them. I've got the erasure poem me and Katie did from the it's
That's
a point of view of
true.
Smaug, but it's
That's
taking the
true.
start of Lord of
You
the
have
Rings.
a lot of poems about the Hobbit.
I know, I've realized this. I've only just realized this. That
It's not a
haven't
problem.
It's not.
but-
It's my favorite book, so I suppose that makes sense. I just hadn't realized. I mean, I've also not. I didn't realize the last one was about the Hobbit until like 90% in, like I said.
Which is ridiculous.
All right. Anyway, what's the other challenge?
Anyway, so that is the first challenge out of the
Okay,
Poetic
it's-
Pine Class of Poetic Challenges is to write
Sounds
a poem
hard.
from the perspective
Thank
of
you,
an
Flo. We'll-
unreliable
we'll
narrator.
try.
All right.
I shouldn't have said
Shaky,
I had one
shaky
already.
time.
I could have just. Oh.
Kev, could I have another sung drum roll? A horrible noise. Stop making that noise. All right.
Well, I'm not a drum.
Oh, this is one I put in. Write a
Oh,
love
I was like,
letter
please just be
from
dragons.
one body part to another.
Oh, we just did cliche.
I'm so
Well,
I love
vote Flo, vote lies.
I
vote
didn't think there was
lies.
something that would make me vote. That would be like, I was like, the unreliable narrator. That does sound hard. But
so yeah, these are your
Wait, hang on, let-
options.
like, it's
Voters.
specifically a love letter. Nah, unreliable narrator.
So are we doing vote lies or vote love? Is that the
Oh my
Hashtag
God,
vote
yeah.
lies.
Vote lies or vote love. So
Vote-
unreliable narration, if you guys are unfamiliar, basically an unreliable narrator is just you're reading the story and you don't know if you can trust what the information in the story is telling you. So it might be someone who is perhaps has, you know, a mental illness and is saying that the world is an incredibly dark, horrific place, whereas that is not the actual reality of the world. So someone where their reality does not necessarily, you know, concur with actual reality. And there
a
are
good
many,
example
many
would
ways
be
of
like
doing this.
Interview with a Vampire, where like Lestat is the narrator, but it's about him. Like, how could you possibly trust him, like, to be giving an authentic
Exactly.
story?
Exactly. Yeah. So there are any number of ways of doing this. And, you know, pieces with unreliable narrators are so much fun because you're tricking your reader effectively. This is something that Edgar Allan Poe did quite a lot of in his poems and stories. You know, even the Raven, you're like, is this guy just hallucinating a raven? Like
I always thought he was sleeping. I always thought that was the thing, that he was just sleeping.
I thought
'Cause-
he'd taken loads of laudanum.
Oh, you are.
All of these are possible. So this prompt, you could just write about a laudanum addicted dragon.
I mean,
which
not,
I
yeah.
think-
I mean, despite what Kev said, not all dragons are untrustworthy. Some are actually very on the side of humans. It's just lesser known. It's just very cliche, and to assume that. Like,
Sadly, Mark, I distrust everything fictional. So
you're the reason the dragons are gone.
Right. I'm a cut you boys off here.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm
that's
I'm
fair.
presuming
Yeah.
you both prefer team lies.
I'm on
rather
team
than
lies.
Team
yeah,
love.
lies. Yeah.
Because
Oh,
the
we're on
other
the same team. That never happens.
Yeah. Well, the other prompt you have to write, this is my favorite prompt because this was proposed. This is an old Andrea Gibson, Andrew Gibby prompt, and Sarah Kay has used it as well. And it's you write a love letter from one part of your body to another, which I think
It's not a bad prompt, but
It's
do the readers really
delightful.
want to let me talk about my body parts?
make it clean, Gally.
The reason I wouldn't go for it is, like, I have done that before,
That's
like
fair.
in workshops and stuff, and like it is a good prompt, but I think again it's more like a stuff like that. I find more like a exercise for reps, right? Like
Mm.
that's just a thing to do. Whereas the unreliable narrator thing, that kind of appeals more. Sorry, I had a lot of strongbow. It kind of appeals more to the like, I don't know, I could do something more creative or more kind of thought out than like it's a bit rigid for me, the one body part to another.
Or again, combine them. Write a love letter from your unreliable elbow to your...
No combining. One wins and one loses, and that's the system. And I say, vote Flo Cairns, vote lies.
Team lies.
And with Team Lies, we are going to wrap up this episode. Guys, as much as Kevin and Mark are dead set on Team Lies, there are two options here. So you may ask, how can I vote? I have strong opinions. I want to vote. The way that you vote, there are 3 different ways that you can vote. You can put a comment in the comment section down below, write lies or love, or write us an essay about your...
write lies or write love.
Lies.
Those are the only ways the votes will be counted.
Fair.
Kate has no regard for the admin time.
I like reading essays, which is a problem. Or you can go to our Twitter poll, which will be posted just after this episode airs, or you can go to our Instagram stories poll. So there are 3 different ways that you can vote for your favorite. Voting closes Monday at noon. So get in your votes by Monday at noon, or else no more votes for you. And then we will let you guys know on social media which challenge has won and which challenge I will be doing my 5 top tips video about. And yeah, which challenge we'll be taking on. So I am very, very excited. Guys, thank you so much for joining me for Loud Poets Happy Hour. Viewers, I hope that you have enjoyed this time. Please do, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Every bit of support honestly means the world. And if we get to 1,000 subscribers, I think Kev might actually spontaneously tap dance. I'm going to promise the viewers that now. So yeah,
She said it.
that's going to happen. So if you want Kev to tap dance, subscribe to the channel. Please note that unsubscribing will not make Kev not tap dance. It doesn't work negatively. And with that, that is our episode. Thank you so much, everyone. We will be back soon. Hope you are enjoying poems and living life and that things are good. And we say cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for joining us for Happy Hour. If you enjoyed the show, please do give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell icon so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. If you want to take it one step further, consider signing up to our Patreon. For as little as £1 a month, you get to submit challenges to the Poetic Pint Glass of Poetic Challenges, and you get lots of other fantastic perks. Thank you so much, guys.